What would you say was Sly's greatest talent? Was it being a leader? Was it the charisma? Was it the songwriting? Was it the singing? What was it about him?
Well, I got to say that there was a good chunk of all those things because I mean, obviously, the songs are still relevant today. They were written back then, and he knew how to work an audience. He knew how to deal with the moment. So that kept it interesting and exciting. Um, you felt like you were there. You were as part of this experience that was happening. So I mean, I think all the things that you mentioned had a high degree of input and all those things.
Mm-hmm. Who would you say was more responsible for, I don't know if responsible is the right word, but who do you think had the greater impact on funk as a genre, Sly or James Brown?
Well, James Brown had already created the funk that he created before the group started. Matter of fact, I remember Sly and I going to see him at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. And we're walking backstage and he stops on and catch on with Sly, says, "Yeah, Sly, when you get that hit, it was what he was saying is don't let up, don't stop. Just keep on keeping on, keep on hitting it, just like that's what people want to hear. You can't let up, So although or like as we discussed earlier, our music wasn't the kind of music that you would just 100% perform verbatim as the record was. Some of it could, but a lot of it you have to change up. And so that was that element was really. And so I mean, as far as timeline goes, James had already started. He was already doing what he was doing. But I think, we took that element and I'd say took it to a different level and to a wider scope of, the songs covered a lot more, there were grooves and it was very musical, but they also covered a lot more, I think, the social stories and challenges and content were a bit wider in scope than what James was doing.
Yeah.
His stuff was. He was the first one I remember in high school listening to. I'd go out and get the records and oh man, it's nothing like James, That stuff at the mark.
So why did things start to splinter, or why did things start to come apart at the seams? What was your experience at the latter part of the 60s or 1970, whenever that was?
Well, probably all the obvious things, just the pressures of the success and the intenseness of the touring and the attention, and of course the drugs probably played a big part of, part of it making it, bigger than reality, for lack of a better term. But also there was, it took its toll, and it's probably one of the bigger elements in the division. All the things that it created, as a byproduct. It doesn't seem like it ends up very well with that element.
At what point did you say, I've had enough? And was there sort of a straw that broke the back for you?
Yeah, 1971 was the point I said, I don't know. And, it was just the focus was in the first half of the existence of the group was the music. And then it seems like that focus changed later on. It became the drugs and the altered states of mind and all that kind of stuff, and it didn't support. It didn't seem to support what it required to maintain the group is what we were created, not for, but what we had created and what we were doing. You could have the illusion of it, and that's probably one of the problems. The illusion that we were attending to all those things that needed responsible attending to, but it really wasn't. And I think the band suffered. So,
and that happened while in the middle of doing this record, or was it the timeline?
There's a riot going on.
Yeah.
Good expression of this moment. Yeah, you got to realize it didn't happen then; it was already happening, and then as time moves on, then you express it. And of course, that's a great record too. Some good stuff on there, but you could see, I mean, you could hear and feel the change of the color of the music, and it's got darker and it got heavier. You could still tell stories out of all that and create good music, but that thing we had created in the beginning was pretty amazing, and I would have liked to see it continue for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
It's such a life.
So how much was the vibe of this record due to, you think, substances compared to what was going on just in that period of history and culturally in America?
Oh, it was probably very relevant. I mean, and it got even it got deeper, and the volume was turned up on all those things we were talking about even more as we got into the 80s, probably. Which the 80s probably would have been the peak of all that. I think it was a pretty close expression of what was going on. People were still having fun with all this at that point in time, I think.
Were you surprised that later on Fresh came out and it was, I mean, that's a solid record. In fact, it's one of my favorite funk records is Fresh. Were you surprised that came together so well as it did after all the chaos that was going on?
Yes and no. I mean, because some of the things that took place that might have been negative, Sly was, I mean, he was a genius. I mean, he had a lot. There's a lot there still, and he probably, he was definitely capable of doing that. So I was surprised that he took the challenge, and came out with something that really came together, probably more than you would expect looking at the situation. Only in that, but I knew that he was capable of doing that. Yeah.
How come you and Larry Graham didn't kind of stick together as a rhythm section, since he left so close to when you left also?
Well, actually, when he started Graham Central Station, I was in the first 6 months. As a matter of fact, myself and Neil Sean were both in the group at the first inception of the group, and then we had different ideas of doing different things, and we all went different ways.
Well, I had Patrice Banks was on the show, and she was talking about that period and how dark it was and all the drug problems and stuff, and Larry had some issues too. So I don't know if that affected the beginnings of Graham Central Station, or if you feel comfortable talking about that. But
no, not necessarily. It wasn't. I don't think drugs were, it was just an individual thing, you know. But you know, the situation never, I think, got to the point where that it was because like were, missing shows, were late and all this, and you could probably directly connect, point at the blame on the excessive drugs. With the parting of ways with Larry, with the Grantchester Station, it was just, that wasn't the thing. That wasn't the point. And it wasn't about that. It was great, but we just had different, Larry wanted to do certain things, and I wanted to do it this way. I wanted to do something a little bit different. So we just amicably took different paths.
So what did you do when you came out? You played with some great folks, though.
Yeah, I took a year off when I first stopped. When I left the group, I took about a year off. Then I got back into it, and I wouldn't change it. It was great. I had some wonderful opportunities to go around the world, play music with different people. Weather Report, Joe Zawinul, Wayne Shorter. I produced Betty Davis's first record.
You're kind of dropping down a little bit.
Yeah, talking about producing Betty Davis's first record. She was the wife of Miles. And I got some great tours with some phenomenal artists, like David Bowie, Peter Frampton for a little bit. So I had some wonderful musical opportunities that I was blessed with, and then I got into production and writing also myself. I produced records for and co-wrote and performed on with Lee Oscar, who was the harmonica player in War. And a couple of the tunes, as a matter of fact, one of the tunes that we had created back then in the mid 70s was a hit, not then, but a couple decades later, other artists either sampled or took this. There was one tune called San Francisco Bay that became Timber by Pitbull and Keisha, which was, really big record worldwide. So that song kind of lived few different, wearing different suits, at different times. And so I had, some great opportunities to just continue on in music, and also took some time off to raise a family. And, I'm back playing again and having more fun than I did in the beginning, or just as much. And it keeps me in shape, it keeps me young. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we're certainly glad for that. I mean,
yeah,
thank goodness you are still here to tell these stories. And I mean, of course, for yourself, but I mean, and to still be playing the music. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you played with those other acts, did they come looking for you, or did you just, how did some of those kind of just happen?
I was I was getting phone calls to do this and to do that, and I finally just had the bug to go out and get back into it again. Like I said, I took a year off. I had a Harley Davidson, and I just took a year off and just rode and hung out and did, just dropped not all responsibilities, but just did that, to kind of recreate myself. So it was nice because when I decided to get back into it again, the phone was ringing, and I just started answering it.
Was there anyone in particular from all those that you mentioned that there's a memory from performing with them, or a particular experience that just really kind of stands out, that was funny or particularly fulfilling or anything like that?
I don't know if there's anything funny. I mean, they were all very different. I remember, I was in the Jerry Garcia band between 1974 and 1984. In between doing other projects, I'd go in and out of it. that was fun. I always dug playing with Jerry. You know, I mean, I was fortunate to have a lot of diversity in the things that came across my lap. You know, and I don't funny. Maybe put it differently. You know, I don't remember anything funny. They're all, you know, interesting.
Yeah. What, or was there anything that was the most creatively challenging? Like any?
Well, now you're talking. That maybe would have probably been Weather Report, because it was different than um, where I had been already musically, and it was perfect for the time that it came, and you know, leaving Sly, and, you know, I didn't want to do that again any less. So this was a whole different genre that required a lot of energy, a lot of input, but it was just a total different world. I mean, in the fact of touring just and being on stage and playing music, it was challenging. It was perfect for me at the time, and I do miss Joe Zavino, just a wonderful person, incredible creative entity, amazing, as Wayne Shorter, and everybody in the band. Don Mal playing percussion then, bass player from Eastern Europe, Miroslav Vitos. He was before Jocko played with him. Would have been nice to play also with Jocko, but I didn't get the opportunity.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Greg, as we look back on the Sly experience, though, is there anything that you would say was your best memory of that experience? And I was going to ask for your worst also, but I think just your best would be fine.
Yeah, best would be good. Stick with that. There was many. There was so many. I mean, from, you know, Woodstock, of course, to doing Ed Sullivan Show. We did it 3 times. You know, it was that experience, and all the other TV shows with Dick Cavett. So many great live performances. Like I said, the band was. We would have so much fun playing that it was always like new, you know. So I have a lot of good memories, and what to say.
What was your personal favorite song to play?
One of them would be "Sing a Simple Song," and they all were fun. But "Sing a Simple Song" had it's just laid so profoundly, and just to play it live, I just always enjoyed it. I remember when I cut it, when I went in that last session, you know, to do the drums over. That was one of them, and I remember when we cut it. It wasn't that, I don't remember particularly any, like, it took a bunch of takes or anything. It wasn't like, I think my first or second take, and we all looked at each other, and I remember Larry looked at me and he goes, "That one you're gonna remember, you know, like this is gonna chase you around." And he was absolutely right. It's just such a thick groove, and it's gotten sampled so many times I can't tell you.
I love that one.
800, yeah.
There's some of those songs from the Sly years, like that one, and I don't know if you played on "Thank Me," "Falletinme, Be Myself." Did you play on that one? Yeah, that one too. I mean, they just sound so ahead of their time. They're so innovative, and they're so in the pocket. And you know, I heard them later because of my age when I grew up. So I'm hearing them, you know, later on in like middle school, and I'm just getting into funk music, and I'm hearing those, and I'm saying, wow, that can't be that old. That can't be from that many years ago. It sounds like it could have just come out.
Yeah.
And as they were astounding.
Yeah. It was way just like, you know, when we were talking about the Whole New Thing record, the first record, and it being um, kind of like over everyone's head, for lack of a better term. But the material yet hadn't grew up to where, you know, like this from the Stand album, all those songs, just is like that's when all that craft all came together, and just all our experiences all came together, and it's like the perfect storm. And that's how you get a record like that, like Stand. And the songs, I mean, decade after decade after decade, they're still fresh. They're still new. Some of them are still or as relevant or more relevant than they were when they were created,
Definitely.
musically or story-wise, or what it's saying.
And also influenced so many generations of musicians, but especially in the 70s with all the funk bands. And I wanted to ask you, from all of those, a lot of them were called imitators. I remember in the 70s, so many of the funk bands, it seemed like whatever they would do, they would always get compared to Sly. You know, they would say it was a Sly imitator, it's second-rate Sly, it's third-rate Sly. That was like the barometer that they gauged it all by. And I was wondering if there was any band that came in Sly's wake that you thought kind of really kind of did get it right.
Probably, I remember the first time I had seen Prince on TV, way in the early part of his career, but he had the whole band, you know, whole band. And I'm looking and I go, holy cow, man, check this out. This is like a little us, you know? It was like a clone of what we were back in the day. And so not only did it just, he had that coming out of the gate. Well, I'm sure, I don't know how long it took to put together or whatever, but like I said, in the early stages. And I got to say that he probably went on to create his own thing with the inspiration that the group gave him, Sly, and, you know, music and songs, and did quite a bit with it all the way up until, you know, we lost them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'd put it there.
Were you hearing stuff coming out in the 70s though, after you had left that whole scene and you were like, they're just kind of rehashing what we did?
Well, you know, I mean, I maybe have that thought once in a while, but I didn't on that. I was busy doing my own thing, you know, whatever it was at the moment.
Is it true that you worked on David Soul's record?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So that's, for those who don't know, from Starsky and Hutch, David Soul, that hit record.
Yeah, it was. I got a call. I mean, I don't know David Soul. Right? I don't even think I met him. I don't remember even meeting him. It was the guys that owned the record plant in Sausalito, which was a profound studio that was around a very historical place. Anyway, one of the guys called me and says, "Hey, I'll get this couple tracks I'd like you to do on David Soul's record." And matter of fact, during that period, it was also, I think, we did some tracks on a Bill Wyman record. Man, different people, you know. There was so much going on then. It was like you just didn't think anything of it. Okay, yeah, casual phone call, go down. You know. Record plant was a cool place. A lot of history there.
Yeah, you know.
You know, and in LA then too. Ended up working there a lot.
How'd you feel when drum machines came in? Were you appalled?
No, I remember one of the guys that was real close to Roger Lynn, and I was living in LA at the time, and you know, I didn't think too much of it. Actually, you know, way before that, if you think about it, when I left the group, Sly, the person on Sly to continue recording, he used a Rhythm King, a drum machine. It wasn't these sophisticated drum machines like or even anything like the Lynn drums. It was just a one of these rhythm boxes that you used to hear like in a Holiday Inn lounge, in the cha-cha. So, you know, but there was a clock there, you know, so Sly used the clock, the principle of the clock, you know, so you had time so you could lay your track down. But then he took these kind of corny beats that were programmed in this box, electronic box, and he turned the one around. So instead of you press a button, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. He started it like in between 2 and 3. That would be the 1, which kind of took the rhythm and pulled it inside out. And then you had this phrase that was unlike anybody ever heard before. And then with what he combined it with on the tracks that he cut, you know, it was very interesting. He was probably the first ones to use it. I'm not sure if anybody did anything like that before that.
Wow. Wow. That's very innovative right there.
Yeah, you know, so I remember I wasn't necessarily a studio musician, like, you know, hired, like, you know, there's some guys that was their career. I mean, they did all the sessions and all that. I get hired for stuff, and then I was producing stuff myself. So to them, this was a big threat, because producers and songwriters they'd use these drum machines that are pretty sophisticated, and they cut tracks. You didn't need the drummer anymore. Of course, everything's come around full circle. And there was definitely a place for a live drummer and a live performance, just like, you know, to jump ahead to today's performances, you got guys on a stage with a turntable and, you know, 200,000 people out there going, yeah, and it's just one guy on a stage with a playing loops, and, you know, so as things go, I guess there's a place for everything. You know, you get into certain aspects of hearing music, but I think there will always be a wonderful place for a band that can perform live. There's nothing like it.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
What was it like going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993?
Oh, it was great to, you know, be acknowledged way down the road after all those years. And, you know, I enjoyed every moment of it. Sly was late, of course, but he did show up.
He just turned 75, I saw.
Yeah.
Did you keep in touch at all, like subsequently, or?
Yeah, I mean, off and on through the years. Yeah, I've been in touch with him. Lately, I haven't spoken to him. I don't know. It's been about a year now. But in and out, on and off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about the latest version of the band. You know, who's in it besides yourself, and what are you guys doing now?
Well, it's we started out. There were 3 original members: Jerry Martini and Cynthia Robinson and myself. Fortunately, we lost Cynthia a couple of years ago. And we brought fun into the group, which is Sly and Cynthia's daughter. So we still got new family blood in it, and it's great. We're having a ball. You know, we're just you know, we're out doing the music, and the challenge is to perform it in the spirit in which it was created. And I think the band does a real good job of it. So it's still fun and exciting to do. And the songs, I mean, the songbook is, like we were discussing before, it's still relevant. Anywhere we go around the world, all the generations that came way after we created this music are into it, understand. It's not like that, what I was talking about earlier, in the early part, the stages of the group, you know, where audiences sit there and they don't know what to do, they don't know how to relate. This immediately hits and connects, and people are just having a good time and dancing. Great experience. You know, it's nice to be able to do that. Today, we need a whole bunch of that.
Yeah.
All around the world.
Did you ever imagine back then, you know, in the late 60s, that shift forward decades and that those songs and what you were doing would have such a lasting impression?
Didn't have a clue then. No, I mean, I knew, you know, no, no, did not have a clue then.
It's got to be a kick and very fulfilling.
Even even after the group was established and we had many hits on our belt, we had that momentum going. Still, I mean, there's no way of really looking ahead and knowing how things are going to change, what's going to change, so on and so forth. And it just seems like the music still and keeps becoming more relevant as time goes on.
Did you ever consider recording under your own name or your own band name?
Yeah, I've done a few things under my name. I did this one project that called The Giants that I had. It was that I did with the original conga player from Santana, Michael Carabello. We did a project way back then. Matter of fact, it was during the time, he's the one who introduced me to Betty Davis, by the way. And we were doing a music project and recording, and he had brought Betty in to meet me. She wanted to meet me, and she asked me to produce a record. And so there was a series of tunes that we had recorded with a lot of people from the original Santana group, like Herbie Hancock's on one of the cuts, and there's different people. But I've never done any, extensive writing myself. I've cooperated with Lee and other people on songs. So, I try to keep it going and doing what I'm feeling at the moment.
Yeah. So as we wrap this up, what would you say you're most proud about having done musically?
I'm proud. I feel good about everything that I've done musically. Of course, the standouts would be the group, it would be Sly the Family Stone. My experience with Joe and Wayne, with Weather Report.
How can folks keep up with what you're doing now and find out, when the Family Stone's playing, where they're playing, and all that other good stuff?
So thefamilystonemusic.com is the website. It's got calendar there and all that, pictures, bios, and everything's there. There's some presence on Facebook too, both under the group's name and in my own. That's it.
Outstanding. Greg, it's been so much fun. I know I accidentally called you Eric early on. I apologize for that. But Greg Errico, the fabulous drummer from legendary Sly Stone, congratulations on just an unbelievable career. Thank you so much for sharing the time and stories and memories with all of us.
Good talking to you, Scott.
Take good care.
Bye, everyone.
What an incredible and monumental legacy Sly the Family Stone has left for all of us to enjoy with studio albums, such great, amazing songs, and live recordings. Enormous thanks to my special guest, Mr. Greg Errico, the man who kept the beat for one of the most prolific rock funk bands in music history. I so appreciate him sharing his insights and his stories on Truth and Rhythm. Also, a huge thank you, as always, to the viewers and listeners of this program. Thank you so much for your continued interest and support. Be sure to look for upcoming episodes of Truth and Rhythm and catch up on previous installments at funkandstuff.net, on YouTube, iTunes, and other leading providers. And we want to hear from you. Email me at scottg@funkandstuff.net. Let me know who else you want to see on the show, what you like, maybe what you don't like, what you want to see more of. Keep that feedback coming. Been getting some great in-depth emails from everybody, and it's just a delight. I love it. So lastly, subscribe to Truth and Rhythm at the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube. We need that support. So please subscribe if you already have. Get a friend, get a family member to subscribe. Support the show. Support these great funk, R&B, and jazz artists. Show them that funk, R&B, and jazz still matter. Keep the funk alive. We thank you. And so with that, as always, this is Scott, Dr. Scott Goldfine, signing off, saying keep on vibrating to the rhythm of the one.